This is the video version of the MA2 tutorial that we had yesterday. The content of what we talked about yesterday, for example, general Q&A in relation to the COVID situation and just general questions about placements, etc., won't be covered in this video. If you're interested in that, do email me. Talk to me in tutorials, one-to-ones, etc. This is specifically about MA2 and how to write the MA2 essay. So, as I said in our online session, you have 3 modules: MA1, MA2, professional practice, and those make up your PGCE. MA1 was the essay that you did that included the portfolio of work of lesson plans and pupil A and pupil B and the different effective methods of teaching citizenship education. And that mark, once you have that mark is the mark that you move on with. It is an indicative mark until it is finalized with the exam board. However, it is likely to be the mark that you will get, bar any last minute changes, which you'd be informed of per the examiner, external examiner's discussion with you. MA2, that's the module that we're working on now, wider educational studies and the development of citizenship education with it, a question that you will discuss in a essay-based literature review method, and then further reflection later. And then your third module is the professional practice module, which is placements SE1 and SE2, and your ARF. And as you know, the SE1 is complete, and the you've done part of SE2, and we'll look at how we meet off the teacher standards with the other things in discussion with the DFE. Do make sure your ARF is up to date, as that will be a key evidential point of reference for you. So what is MA2? So the MA2 is a literature review essay, as I said before. If you recall your history of citizenship education assignment that you did at the very beginning of the course, made up of 1,000 words, that 1,000 words was a formative assignment that helps you to draw together your ideas of citizenship education, which I needed to assess at that point in the course to make sure that you knew what you were doing and writing about, and you knew about the literature available to you. And that assignment indeed helped for your MA1 and the drawing of theory and literature related to MA1. But now, in particular, the history of citizenship is particularly relevant to part of the assessment criteria for MA2. And you're by all means welcome to keep it as it is, the history of citizenship education, expand and develop upon it, or by all means you can chop and change it and move it around the rest of your 3,500 words. When you're writing your MA2, please look at the common problems that existed in MA1 and take heed of them so as not for them to not occur in MA2. Look over the feedback in the annotation of your scripts from the history of education that you received personally, to look at how you can develop your work further from that point on. And of course, that individual feedback was individual to you, so it was very much related to the question that you may have been posing at the time or the way that you were articulating in writing your history of citizenship at that point. So do look over that. In the pack that I've put on Moodle, which includes this PowerPoint, you also can find top tips and the common problems in Word format. Look over the feedback from MA1. Look at that, I've made that error again. MA1, there we go. Look at the feedback from MA1 that you just submitted to see how your general writing and general themes that come up that you need to improve upon to help you for MA2. And make sure that you're looking at the program guide, pages 21 to 26, to have a full understanding of the requirements of the writing, the assessment criteria, and the assessment scaling from A to C, which you need to pass, and D, E, and F. So let's take a look at those elements now and looking at what you have to do. So when we're looking at the program guide, pages 21 to 26, you can see that this assignment that you have to hand in for April the 21st at 4 p.m. is a 3,500 word essay with a specific question that you're choosing to write about, which you'll all tell me about on the 26th of March, or you have told me about on the 26th of March. And we're going to look at some of those examples in a minute. Now, you need to submit an abstract, 150 to 200 words, your full essay, the rest of the 3,300 words, whatever your abstract is deducting, and a full bibliography. And then you'll receive feedback on that work, and then you'll probably improve upon it and add discussion to it, etc., edit certain things, and then you'll do your reflection of 1,500 words, analyzing your experience in school so far relating to your question that you're using, and using data that you can find in journals, online, and possibly through your observations of practice to reflect on that experience that you had in school. So you do very much have to think of a question that you can actually write about, that isn't you reinventing the wheel of your knowledge, that is something that you're interested in, and that you can find empirical data, secondary data from other sources, and you're able to critically analyze that information and think about what it means in terms of the experience that you've reflected on in schools. And you need to submit both of those for the final summative deadline on the 2nd of June. So let's have a quick look at the program guide. And as I said, it's pages 21 to 26. So here it explains the background of the development of citizenship education, the wider educational studies element that you need to draw in. And of course, when we're talking about the history of citizenship education, we're talking about the texts that relate to it. Very clearly indicates what you have to do. And here are some former used questions that have been discussed before. Now, by all means, you can take one of these questions and use it because maybe you're particularly passionate about that, but maybe you want to write about something else. Writing about something else does mean you have an original piece of work, an original piece of writing that potentially you could go on to explore widely later on, either in teacher-related practice within a school that might have impact, research-based impact within your school, or potentially further educational research that you want to do later on here at UCL, for example, the MTeach or another master's program, etc. You know, there is a master's in citizenship, so maybe you would like to do that. So do think about the question that you're going to use and discuss that with me, because the question really relates to how you're reflecting upon it later. And as I've said, you do your essay and a reference bibliography list. For your bibliography, please do it in a Harvard referencing style. Do not include every book you've ever read in the history of time for your bibliography. Only the elements that you are citing directly in your essay is what I require in your bibliography. So moving forward, this is how I'm assessing you, your specific assessment criteria for the 3,500 words that you will get formative feedback on. And as I said, that's delivered on 21st of April. And then when you submit that again with your 1,500 words reflection, and it explains more about the reflection there, that will form a 5,000 word assignment, and that assignment is submitted on the 2nd of June by 4 p.m. And that will be your final submission of that work. Anyone who requires extenuating circumstances or SORA extensions, do submit that to the APO, and in this particular case, Liz Taylor, as soon as possible. Of course, a week extension would be the 28th of April, the following Tuesday, or in the case of Tuesday, the 2nd of June, it would be the 9th of June, the following Tuesday. And you'll be assessed on these assessment-specific criteria. So as you're working through your assignment, take particular heed of these assessment criteria and think, have I demonstrated this when I'm writing? Have I demonstrated, as we talk about here, a critical understanding of the relationships of citizenship education to other aspects of education? So if you're writing, for example, a question about fundamental British values and citizenship education, as a question has previously been written about, you're very much thinking about citizenship education and fundamental British values, and then drawing together connections. In the MA1 assignment, lots of people wrote very specifically about what effective teaching is and why that's useful. And of course, I'm very happy to see that you're champions of effective teaching, but you should also be champions of effective citizenship teaching, and thus your literature review should reflect citizenship teaching and the other subject. So if you're writing about fundamental British values, you very much need to be doing literature review and critical analysis into fundamental British values as well, and then making the connections. And with that particular question, there are a lot of connections, as you know about, that can be made. However, if you just write about citizenship education, make very tenuous, limited links to fundamental British values, or you spend your entire essay writing about fundamental British values and then trying to connect it to citizenship education after, that's where you're missing a trick, basically, and you're starting to reduce your marks because you're not answering this criteria here. Again, your history of citizenship education elements can come out here, and some of the skill-based things and some of the ongoing arguments. But these areas are the key critical things in your 3,500 word essay. So, for example, evaluating citizenship education and making connections between theoretical and practical comes out in your reflection, as does these three in your actual main assignment. So do work through it and potentially give it to someone you know or can connect with in your household in these difficult times to read over through your work and consider, have you actually done those things? Now, in terms of the master's level assignment criteria, it specifically lays out knowledge, understanding, application of knowledge and understanding, all these elements, critical reflection, and how you meet grades A, B, and C. Remember, D is a fail, E is a fail, and F is a fail, and in this situation, you would have to resubmit. Now, if you are resubmitting from the 21st of April deadline, there is no clear resubmission deadline, so do get things in for the 21st of April. But for the June the 2nd deadline, there is a resubmission window, and that would be later on in June. However, be aware that the external exam board for June is at the end of June, and consequently, if you are missing that external exam board to resubmit your work, you would be limiting your potential to complete the program, because you may be left until later on in the summer for an additional external exam board, or indeed December of this year. So I highly recommend that you submit as the time is there, and work as hard as you can in this additional time that everyone has working from home, so as to write a very good, solid piece of work so that you get your C's, B's, and A's. And of course, you can read here very clearly about how you meet these things. And again, some of you submitted this within your MA1 submission and almost highlighted the areas that you felt that you had reached. Now, in terms of our marking, we don't take into account what you've put here, but it does help you to think about how you got there. So have a think about how you do that. Now, in terms of common problems and top points, again, as I said, I've put these on Moodle as a package. Mainly, the main bugbear I had throughout the marking of your MA1s was there was only a few people, a handful of people, that were referencing appropriately and thoroughly, including avoiding any kind of potential patchworking that was going on, Google patchworking in terms of plagiarism, and then also an over-reliance on quotations and not citing properly. Now, please, it didn't cause a problem with any of you this time, but there were areas where it could have caused a problem if you had slipped down the wrong way too quickly. So please take heedance of library guidance in terms of referencing, especially if I've individually indicated that to you in your MA1 feedback. There's a lot of help you can get online, but also do email our subject librarian. I've indicated his email address on the PowerPoint, so do email him to get guidance and feedback of how you can do that. The other aspect of it, which I related to the assessment criteria as well, is that you're not bringing in a range of literature. So, of course, in these times it's difficult because you can't get access to textbooks, but there's a range and a wealth of literature online that you can use. So do interrogate that. Think about how you're analyzing and how you're being critical of past and future materials and how you're making absolute sure that you're writing in a fair and objective way, that you're not overly criticizing some work written in 1920 from something written in 2020, that you're giving it context and value as you're writing and as you're working through it. And so on. And then in terms of top points, again, I've indicated how we mark, etc., some elements to do with citations and what I've just said in terms of chronological order, and so on. The most important thing is that you are thinking very much that this is a literature review, so there should be a range of literature. It's 3,500 words, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages of individual references that you have cited within your work. I come back to it, has to be within your work. I have included here in the Moodle guide as well top ways of working in the library and different links that exist and people you can email and skills support and so on, and reading this. So please look at that email as well. While I catch my breath and drink a bit of water, have a look at this. I love that quote. Anyway, so that was there. Now we come back to here. So research, as I said, there's no library books unless you have them at home, but don't make tenuous link. Make sure that it is actually relevant to what you're writing about. And I have to say, sometimes I'm writing something and I think that's a really good point. I need evidence for this. And then I go and find the book that has evidence. And other times I'm reading the book and then I think this is an amazing point, and I write it down and I cite it and reference it, and then I use it within. So do try a range of those different things. Whatever you do, don't use Wikipedia for citations or anything similar to that, because the authorship isn't accurate. Some of these authors that are on Wikipedia don't even exist. There is plagiarism on Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a great tool to learn about things, and I use it all the time. I used it 5 minutes ago, I think, before this video. But don't cite it. Find accurate materials for it. Make sure that you're using Explore, the library's method of the library. 1 second. So like this, you go to it and then you take your theme. Let's say it's citizenship and disaster education, because that's the example I used in the online session we had. And then be critical about the resources you're using. So this is 2000 and it's about the national curriculum from that period, from the first introduction of the national curriculum. So it's not relevant really in terms of that. But this article, Community and Citizenship Post-Disaster Japan, may be useful in terms of the question that you're posing. So do be really reflective and critical about those elements within. And then remember our reading lists that exist online that have been put there. And Citizenship Reading List has a significant, huge range of books that you can cite and look at. In fact, there's so many that I don't understand why they're not all in your work. So there is that. And then, of course, there is further reading links, which are related to yesterday, that can help you connect with literature that you may be interrogating about your particular topic. So let's say you were talking about the Holocaust and citizenship education. There is a whole reading list of elements used in the Holocaust or Holocaust education. If you were talking about testing, there's a reading list for testing and so on. So do use these reading lists because they are absolutely extensive and very detailed and have a range of resources that you can pull out from a range of areas. Remember, there's also the secondary reading list, secondary PGCE reading list that you can also additionally use. So the thing about this assignment, MA2, is very much about you reading, you analysing information about your topic area, bringing that into your writing and connecting it to citizenship, and then later for the June submission, reflecting on what you've seen in schools related to what you've written about here, and also bringing in information relating to that through literature. So the key element is very much you have to read. You have to read, write. And that's why I say all the time this week I'm writing, because part of writing is a lot of reading. So you do need to do that. And of course, then we moved on in our session yesterday yesterday won't be yesterday when you watch this video, but you know what I mean. We moved on to discuss questions that you had. And you had a variety of questions that you can pull up on the Teams chat. And if you need to ask me again, please, by all means, send me an email, ask me in one-to-one. But the key thing is you need to have a question that you're focusing on. And don't forget all of the supplementary literature related to citizenship education, including GCSE textbooks and so on. And you need to cite all of those things. So hopefully that has answered your MA2 questions. You may be sitting there thinking, I know about all of those things, but what do I actually write? And that is up to you at this master's level, and that's why we're having one-to-one tutorials about it and discussing it very intently. But there is the freedom. What do you write? What are you interested in? Surprise me, tell me what you're interested in, and I look forward to that. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to this overview of MA2, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Okay, now I have to end, which always is a struggle. Here we go. Take care. Bye.